Our provincial population is aging. By 2030, over a quarter of Nova Scotians will be above the age of 65. But just because you've had a few more birthdays doesn't mean you should feel like your community is limiting you from doing the things you once loved. That's why it's important for our municipalities to plan for our shifting demographics and create age-friendly communities. But what exactly is an age-friendly community? We host an event to ask Caledonians that very question. Well, the exact definition for age-friendly may differ depending on who you talk to. The general definition is a community where people of all ages feel they can actively participate in society by having adequate measures in place that allow them to do so. But adequate measures is a little vague, and what works for one person may not work for another. To try to figure out what this means within the HRM, we ask community members what age-friendly means to them.
To me, an age-friendly community is one where we have people of all ages living together harmoniously, with all of us having the capacity to be included in community events and able to get around.
For me, age-friendly would mean places that are not only made for children, so our small children, but all the way up to our aging seniors and everyone in between.
So an age-friendly neighborhood to me would be a neighborhood that's walkable, places where people can gather in public places and community spaces as well, and things for people to do, activities that don't cost a lot of money.
It means designing communities from ages 8 to 80. It means having no barriers for any child, adult, senior. It's about just making our communities safe and accessible for all ages.
To me and to the team at Oceanview, the thing that really makes a community age-friendly is that all seniors have the supports they need to live comfortably wherever they call home, and that we as a community all work together to come up with creative solutions to help them still feel engaged and still feel a part of something.
Designing for all ages and abilities is crucial for creating communities that are welcoming to everyone. Our communities contain a variety of people with different physical, mental, and sensory abilities, many of which are not always visible. 1 in 3 Nova Scotians self-identify living their lives with a disability, and if our communities are not designed for everyone, it can leave people feeling isolated and detached from society. Accessible and reliable public transportation systems and inclusive public spaces are both considered to be top priorities when it comes to making our communities better for all demographics. Making sure all modes of transportation are designed to be as accessible and affordable as possible is one of the top priorities for ensuring that communities are accommodating for all ages and abilities. Your physical, mental, or financial ability to drive can decrease as you get older, making walking, public transit, or taxi services the most common alternatives. But if our communities are designed primarily for car travel, it can create limitations due to people's abilities or access to alternative modes of transportation. For those using active transportation, implementing large-scale infrastructure projects like designated trails and bike lanes is a common way to make pedestrians and cyclists feel safer and increase their mobility. However, even small changes to our infrastructure are important to help increase mobility. Stakeholders in the HRM who interact with our senior population and local community members have all noted that changes to existing infrastructure, like ensuring sidewalks and pathways are properly maintained to be smooth and even, can make walkways accessible to a broader range of ages and abilities. For those community members who cannot use active transportation, public transportation systems are crucial. Survey responses indicated that 48% of people consider public transit as the most accessible options for seniors. However, public transit was also the option most people felt could be made more accessible to all ages and abilities. Providing accessible modes of public transit, such as the Accessibus service, or ensuring transit fleets are usable by varying mobility levels, is key to providing equitable service to all. It's also important to remember that additional barriers, such as a person's distance from a bus stop, the quality of the infrastructure between them, as well as the cost to use transit, can also limit one's access. As important as it is to provide people with accessible ways of getting around, we also need to provide them with locations and reasons to go out into their community. It's important for all ages and abilities to spend time in public spaces and interact with other members of the community. If public spaces are poorly designed, lack amenities, or aren't physically accessible for seniors or people with disabilities, residents can become socially isolated. The World Health Organization stated that in many cities there are physical barriers that discourage seniors from using these spaces. These barriers can include stairs, steep inclines, and a lack of public seating. We asked Haligonians what they thought our public spaces needed more of in order to be welcoming to our aging community members. It was suggested that our existing public spaces are often built with able-bodied persons in mind and could be made more welcoming to all demographics. Public washrooms were the amenity indicated as being most needed in our public spaces, followed by benches and improved walking paths and networks. Shaded areas and drinking fountains were also features commonly chosen. Certain features were also suggested to make our public spaces more appealing, including greenery, aesthetic enhancements, and making installations like picnic tables wheelchair accessible. It helps to ensure that spaces are welcoming and usable by all community members. This can encourage interactions between a wider demographic, helping to decrease feelings of isolation and loneliness in our communities. Even just adding aesthetic features like public art and water fountains can have additional benefits. Research suggests that making public art permanent and distinctive may help with wayfinding for seniors with dementia.
One of the most important aspects of an age-friendly community is making sure our seniors can age in place. This means that as we grow older, we can continue to live in our own homes or find suitable housing within our communities. Most older homes were not built with universal design principles, and retrofitting them can be challenging due to the high cost of renovations.
Members of our community who lived on fixed incomes may be limited in their housing options. High rental rates and housing prices can inconvenience people and create barriers by limiting housing options to locations far away from services, necessary amenities, and cause social isolation.
Affordable housing is an issue for everyone, everywhere, and our aging population is no exception. There needs to be more focus on finding affordable housing for our seniors, who also face the challenge of finding housing that's accommodating to physical limitations.
By creating incentives for architects and developers to include universal design principles in new buildings, we can increase housing stock that allows people of all ages and abilities to stay in their own homes for longer.
So next time you're in a public park, driving around town, or even just in your own home, consider if the space is accessible for children and seniors alike. It's up to all of us to put pressure on our political leaders to make sure that our current and future spaces are designed for everyone. When we build our communities for all ages and abilities, everyone benefits.